Hey, folks, sitting down with Corey Hatt, the Mad Hatter himself, on the Hard to Kill podcast today. And it's been a while. It's been a long time coming, buddy. So I'm glad you can find some time on a Friday to have a chat. So welcome to the pod, Corey. And for those that don't know who you are just yet, why don't you give everybody a little intro as to who you are and what you've been up to?
Sure, thanks. It's an honor to be on here, and obviously a big fan. So myself, Corey Hatt, also known as Mad Hatter from Mad Hatter Industries, or Lieutenant Hatt from 32 MP Platoon. 20 years now in the military, 2 tours, some private security work in the Caribbean for a couple of years, and some contracts elsewhere. But we started Mad Hatter Industries about 2.5 years ago. This July will be our third year, and it's been a real awesome adventure. And we're going to talk about something for our listeners on how to get prepared from the battlefield to the business world and what kind of tricks or tips soldiers have for advantages getting into the business world, and any questions that they might have, social media, marketing, or business or otherwise. But definitely happy to be on here. And that's the quick nitty gritty about who I am. And now I work full time at a nuclear plant, so kind of been all over the
You're Homer,
place.
so you're Homer Simpson.
Yeah, with the hair, I got the hair, so slightly less out of shape than Homer Simpson, thanks to the Morrowisms that I've been able to incorporate into my lifestyle, such as
Right
a
on.
healthy mindset, lifestyle, and sleep acumen.
Wait, did you just say Morrowisms?
Morrowisms.
Is that a thing now?
Everybody knows about the Dave Morrowisms.
Am I
They
turning into a
should.
meme and I don't even know it?
For
That's
goodness,
amazing.
yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'm rocking the Mad Hatter. Is this your OG? Is this
Love
like
it.
your original black and white trucker hat? Is that
That is
right?
our most popular hat, the classic trucker style OG signature series. Yeah, and I think you were one of the originals to have that first lineup. It's been a really popular item.
Yeah, it looks good and fits good. Now I just need to wash it because it's starting to turn a bit yellow. So I'm gonna have to get my wife on that. I don't know how to do it properly. So I want to
Or we'll
keep this
get you a
hat
new one, whatever
in
you
tip
want.
top, tip top. Now
Yeah,
I've got hats that go back to like grade 11 for me, man. I don't mess around
yeah.
with my hats. I keep
I
them.
still got my Tim Hortons calf hat from Afghanistan,
Oh,
so
I
that's a
lost
collector's item.
mine. I lost mine in like the
Yeah.
last week. I think, well, I lost it. I'm pretty sure somebody stole it. I was on an American base. I'm pretty
Oh
sure they
yeah,
stole it.
it's a hot item.
Yeah, very hot item. Okay, so you're an entrepreneur. You work at a nuclear plant. You're currently a member of the reserves. Um, is there anything else that you do, Corey?
A few, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the sky's the limit. But former expedition member for True Patriot Love in 2012, we did the Nepal climb with Frank
Wow,
DePere, who was a really good friend of mine, and rest in
rest
peace.
in peace. Yeah.
Also, a few businesses that we're a part of. I run a brewery up in Bob Cajun. If you're ever out this way, love to have you out there sampling some of our latest and show you how the process works. It's called Old Dog. I think that's pretty much it. Also a Freemason, former, now a past master, but kind of been all over the place. So in terms of leadership, picked up a few things along the way, Toastmasters even, and just kind of put in my toolbox what I felt works for me. And the authenticity, I think, of the brand speaks for itself with the events that we're involved with, both physically and what we contribute to for a bottom line. But it's definitely a team effort.
Right on. Not only that, you have two kids, right? Or one?
Yeah, that's right. The most important thing, being a father of two kids, and that's
No big
definitely
deal,
having a
right?
little daughter changes your life. Yeah, and a son, of course, to test you every day.
Oh man. So I'm glad you brought up Morrowisms because, yeah, full disclosure, when I'm doing stuff and I'm working and I'm like, man, I got a lot on my plate. I say to myself, what would Corey do? Kind of like a what would Jesus do kind of thing. I'm like, what would Corey do? Like, he's got a lot on his plate. He's got two kids too. I got two kids. Okay. Do I have, can I handle this? Yeah. I mean, he works at a nuclear plant, man. Like, that's pretty serious. I don't have a job that's that serious at all. Yeah, I can handle this. Yeah, full disclosure, that's that maybe I'll make a little wristband for myself
I
too.
love it.
Just refer to it. What would Corey
Yeah.
do? So needless to say, you're a busy man, and obviously you're passionate about what you do. You take on challenges head on. You don't shy away from them. And it's amazing that you're able to get all these things done. But obviously, you must have a pretty good support team behind you. So I guess we'll dive into there first. Like, how do you keep track of all this stuff? Because for some people, like me, just hearing, I'm like, wow, like my wife's like, you got way too much on your plate, Dave. And I'm like, I'm like, I don't want to bring up, I don't want to put Corey under the bus right now, but like, Corey does a lot. Do you know Corey? And she's like, is this one of your like man bro, like bromances right now? I'm like, well, you know, Corey, I've talked about him a few times, and you come up when it's like the whole conversation, like doing too much comes up. I'm like, but I manage well what I have, but you manage, and from what I see, things very well very well too. So what is it like that allows you to be able to just do those things without just like completely falling apart and saying like, screw it, I can't do anything anymore?
Well, yeah, I guess it's a combination of things. I'm glad it comes off as that, but it's certainly organized chaos. And I guess, yeah, things have come in terms of like full transparency. I was not the most, I wouldn't say I was the best soldier or the most dedicated member on my gun teams. It just came with time and listening to what people had to say and constantly looking to develop and improve yourself. And in terms of stress management, things really started to come into place when I started putting the right people into place. And I've been able to competently fill all roles, but understanding when the time and place is for you to basically withdraw from being the technician to moving up to the manager and then being the entrepreneur. I think that comes from the E-Myth, actually, which is a really good book. And it talks about the three types of hats that all successful business people have to carry. But same thing for soldiering, like especially in the Canadian Forces, we think about how many hats we have to carry and be adaptable, especially overseas. When you need something, you find a way to beg, borrow, and steal, work with other units, trade things, and you just get the mission done. And I think that's a good practice to bring into business, you know, having the abilities and mindsets to understand what's needed to be done, but also finding the right people for it. In terms of management, it's always being aware of the facts that some things are going to fall. Like you're not going to catch all the balls that you're balancing up in the air. And if you can, great. But you have to keep in mind that really it's a 2 or 3 that need to be the highest priority, having the right priorities on what's most important to keep your mission moving forward. Like every day I'm spending an hour or 2 specifically on certain things for the business. So I have my 8 hours a day for my regular job, and then sometimes 8 hours or more for the secondary job. But having that time to just check up on people and make sure everything's in place for the things that you've delegated to, that's actually a little bit easier when it's done that way. So I found recently I just became a platoon commander. So taking the commission was an interesting thing. Being a platoon warden, I really loved doing that. Before that, a section commander, and even just being a corporal, understanding that job. But as things went higher up, became sort of less right into the weeds of things and more higher level, looking at the trees in the forest for what they were. So the higher up you go, it kind of becomes more less tactical and kind of more about the long-term approach and having everything in play. And that helps. It's also like spinning a bicycle wheel. The more the bicycle keeps rolling, when that wheel is moving, it's easier to keep that momentum going. So I've never stopped moving, and I've had to get rid of certain things. Like I loved playing StarCraft, and I actually had to delete that. So I don't have any vices, no movies. You know, I'll read books and stuff, but I guess for any spare time that I have, it'll be on Instagram because I enjoy the content creation, seeing what's being done, what other people are doing, what I can get to it. But I had to get rid of all vices and just replace them with certain aspects of the business that I enjoy. But like any business, everything has a time and a place, and you can't just do one thing all the time. You kind of have to be able to be dynamic and adaptable enough to go through to other items. And maybe it's a little touch of the ADD or just that operational tempo we get overseas. When we come back, we're always looking for something to do. I found with the business, there's always something to do. And I'll switch from task to task to task, just kind of checking up on things and, you know, seeing where things are at. It helps to have that short attention span to keep checking up on different things, but also have that selective hyper focus when you need to really dig into the weeds on something or make a decision on a big financial plan.
Yeah. You bring up a lot of good points there. To go back, you're not the first person to talk about the E-Myth book, so clearly that's one I got to put on the list, on my reading list. But also the ADD thing, post tour, post operation. That's so true, and I never really had that until I came back. It was just like because you're constantly busy, you get conditioned to a certain tempo. And it's like, man, you're constantly fixing problems. And then you come back and I had no problems to fix. And I was like, I didn't have a family. I didn't have anything really. I just came back and I was just like lost in the sauce. And it took a few years. I got into teaching. Teaching is nonstop, but it's not the same kind of, I guess it's not I call it pleasurable op tempo when you're teaching. Like you're busy, but it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you're constantly kind of putting out fires and you're like, I don't want to just be putting out fires. I want to be creating and at the end of the day, be like, oh, I did that, like, and that was
your passion.
Yeah. It was just like, I do love teaching. I still do it. Like I got my whiteboard here because I do like lessons and stuff still to teach other people other things, just not in a classroom setting. It's something that I enjoy, but it was just like in the school itself, it was more of it almost felt like I was a daycare worker more than anything else. So that's why I transitioned out and I wanted to play to my strengths, which was creating and kind of like what you do. Like you're a creative guy. You're constantly creating something to make it better, bigger, and to use your experience as a means to help other people as well. And to convey your experience as best you can, which is really, really noble of you. Now I want to take a step back because, we start talking about like what's going on now with you, but early on in your career, how did you get ready and how did you like mentally and physically prepare for the job that you undertook? Because you didn't just take any old job. Like you decided like, I want to be like an elite soldier. How did you get to that level? Like what was the dedication like? Because clearly it's translated itself to where you are now. So what was that process like for you?
I guess I just kind of fell into it. I've always loved the Army. I tried the Air Cadet thing when I was in high school. It was not for me. My father was an ex Air Force officer, so obviously there's some influence there. But I love the Army, and I think really when you can find something you love doing, it really, the money's important. It's important to pay the bills, but it's almost better to take than get paid a little bit more money and be miserable doing something you don't enjoy or really just don't have an interest for in terms of skills or capability. And a lot of friends of mine that have become lawyers, even doctors, have that regret later on where they should have just followed what they wanted to do. Even just being like, somebody that's running their own business, but barely making ends meet. If they really love it, then there's a lot more benefits from it. Or being a cook in the background. Yeah, that's struggling entrepreneur, but finding value. And that's really, but the calling is what you make of it, really. It's what you do. It's how you do it, not exactly what you do. And then in terms of the soldiering, we had a fortunate opportunity to come into a time when there was a lot of contracts being handed out to secure the Afghanistan territory for the new government that was put into place. So we were there as a stability force. And I really did enjoy working with both the Afghan police, as sketchy as they may be, and the Army, which were awesome. I love working with those guys and just helping out the population. The kids I'll never forget the kids, how grateful they were. And, being able to do stuff like stop at orphanages, dropping off things, and working with some of the most elite soldiers I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And just at a whole other level, understanding how they got there in their mindset of just basically focusing where their feet were at, basically the actions that they had, instead of just being ones that talk, you could tell right away, they didn't have to say anything. The calm and collective, that confident professionalism, it was always there. And that's what, I had a lot of big brothers to look up to. They just basically, I saw what they did well. And I took that for notes for the future when I could apply. When I did selection, I did the pre-selection CAF on my first tour. Then I got ripped out on the first chalk to go on selection, did the PLQ, and I did the Blackwater course back when the close protection course was in Blackwater, which is amazing. got to meet Mr. Prince, who is the former CEO and founder. Very nice guy. You know, people say what they want about him. I judge people by what I see when I look in their eyes and how they treat me. So definitely, he wasn't the dark prince or overlord of a black mercenary army, but really nice, down to earth fella, and awesome person, as well as a lot of people there were basically just, it was like going to a Harvard school for shooters and graduating with a doctorate and just gun running and taking those lessons that I learned in preventing things like robbery attempts or takeovers when we were in Barbados. And I won't get into too many details about that on camera, but there was definitely a lot of action there, and it was surprising. So the skills that we learned helped. And I think also that risk mindset, as you know, being in harm's way in combat, we have a different approach to risk. We have, I think we have a more grounded approach into how we can determine if a risk is worthwhile or not, and a willingness to go and make those leaps, because we've been to places where there was basically all out combat and nothing to lose at certain points. And we didn't have a choice as soldiers. We had to go where we were told to go and defend and fight. And I think taking those skills back and applying them into the workforce, we have a unique circumstance when it comes to understanding what risks to take, how to plan or understand the sliding rate of risk, if it's worth your return and the efforts, as well as how to stay calm under fire. It helps us with our stress management. And then that mental resilience, which comes into the mission mindset. You know, we can overcome physical and mental hardships. So I'd like to think a lot of us can work just as hard, maybe harder than certain entrepreneurs physically, and we can put in those long hours mentally. But it's important to know when you're spinning your wheels and you're just doing it to do it versus it being progressive. And that's where the mental health focus comes in, being close to burnout and seeing in other people's careers that they've done where they've just had issues and had to take a step back. Mm-hmm. It's important to recognize that and also talk about the importance of a healthy lifestyle. Like the more physically and mentally fit you are for anything in life, the better off you'll be, the better of a soldier you'll be, better father. And that's where those Morrowisms come in, true and tried, right? The importance, the unparalleled benefits of sleep and the ultimate detriment to having sleep deficiencies, how that plays into your mental cognition, understanding, performance, attitude. That's a big thing. And I've seen it repeatedly in myself and others. They're big things to catch in on. And especially when you're the face of a company, you have to keep moving forward. So that sleep's a big underrated thing. And also if you don't get it, you have to still be able to perform. So I think that's where the experiences we've been through under extreme stress, we know we can perform. And for those that have been shot at and had to return fire, you know how you perform under fire. So that's a good crucible to test yourself and set yourself forward into the business world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good that you brought that up because, you know, that stress inoculation, everybody has different experiences with stress, but hands down, when you're on a two-way range, there, like that's a stress that 99.9% of people will never experience in their lives. And for me, ultimately, it's very hard to kind of convey the level of stress that I've experienced to, let's say, my wife, who, when there's something going on in the house, that's like, yeah, I'm kind of rolling my eyes. I'm like, yeah, it's not. And she's really stressed. I'm like, it's not that bad. It'll be fine. No, it's not going to be fine. And then you have to, I find, you know, like that's what's cool about talking, you know, with yourself and other veterans, like you have that understanding. It's like, okay, like, is this really that bad? No, we can kind of chill and have a laugh, right? But for everybody else, like, especially when we're in business, right, we're not dealing primarily with individuals that have been shot at, or, you know, they're just normal people. And then it's, for me anyway, sometimes hard to kind of, you know, empathize almost when somebody's starting to spin out of control. I'm like, what are you spinning for? You know, like what is that? Like, why do you have such a weird stress response to something that seems so innocuous? But it's because we've experienced those high of highs and those low of lows. So we get to modulate. And I think you're right. Like this definitely puts us in an advantageous position when we're in the business field, because we know what it's like to deal with high stress. We know what it's like to work at a high level with very little sleep. I think those are superpowers that you end up cultivating. Although it's hard on the body, it does, when the time comes, allow you to perform better than somebody who's never really experienced it. And I think longevity in the business space is dependent on, your ability to just stick it out, be able to change, be able to recognize threats and be able to, learn from your mistakes. And that's what we've learned over our careers, and you continue to learn because you're still in. I'm always curious because you mentioned like sleep and fitness and stuff like that. And I obviously 100% agree. Like no matter what you're going to do, if you're fit and you're well rested, like the world's your oyster, man. Like you've got it over everybody else that's not. You can think better. Like you've got just such an advantage, but it takes time to get there. What's your go-to when it comes to staying fit these days? You have so much on your plate. How do you, like, you're still fit, obviously. How do you fit that in? How do you prioritize? Like you're not at the same, like you're not like deploy ready fit because your priorities are totally different now. So what do you do now in order to keep that level of fitness so that you're still in the game and able to perform?
Yeah, well, for me, it's been recently anyways, jiu-jitsu has really helped. And it's that community of people that are willing to put you in uncomfortable positions and choke you out.
To death.
It's all about positivity and growth. And what they do, at least at the gym I'm at, I'm pretty sure that's the same philosophy with most martial arts, is to develop individuals, help them progress and understand how little effort you need to achieve your goal, which is a submission or a tap out, by understanding those fundamentals. But it's also just a great activity to physically exert yourself, and you feel great after, like doing physical exercise like that with people who are all positive and learning and having that understanding to tap out if you need to, right? If you're in a position where it's just, you can muscle it out like I do, which isn't the smartest thing. Like basically still working my jaw and throat back after one of the last arm bars or chokes I was put in. But it's a good understanding, and it's humbling to be able to develop and push yourself with a mindset of individuals that may not even be half your age, that are still schooling you, or double your age. And it's just an interesting dynamic. And I think also having an online community like you do, the hard to kill folks, it's good because everybody has different skills and abilities, especially when we're talking about injuries. But having that community is really key. And online, we have a lot of people that send us workouts to do, and people that we look up to that are extremely fit, including yourself. There's others that also do a lot of rucking and different adventures. Plus, we have the fundraisers that we do every year, such as the Ruck to Remember. I think what keeps me going is that community and staying focused with goals of what I want to do. I had a very simple goal for this year's new year kind of thing. It's not a new me. It's just the same me, but more. And for me, it was just more jiu-jitsu. And I make time, as hectic as the week is. I was only going once a week and then doing boxing as well. But there's always time to make more time for the things that you love. You just got to reprioritize things. And we're also in a shift with a business where I don't do everything. The wife's getting more involved. We have a team of about 30 advocates and more people helping out with the media. So it's really nice to see the company evolve. And it was never meant to be something that I was to own. It's to pass on and also have everyone have their say in how things go. And then with our advocates, they get a piece of the profits as well. For anybody that uses their code, they immediately get reimbursed. And although I've never paid myself, we're actually like net minus $60,000 in costs. And most of that's inventory, but I don't ever see myself getting paid from the job or the company anytime soon. It's just everything goes back into growing the business and making it more, more improvements. For me, it's just until we're ready to become the premier company there to help and help people find their passions and live their adventure. That's the goal, is to continue doing that. And if it pays for my lifestyle, if I get a tank of gas for the bike or, my car every day now and then for dropping off deliveries, which I'm known for either dropping by in a motorcycle or taking a quick break in someone's cornfield. That's just part of the, I love doing that, meeting and connecting with people. I think that's the most important part, is the brand is what it is because of the community. It's not the products that people buy, it's the ideas behind each shirt. And I love designing. Everything comes with a different idea around motivating and helping and inspiring others, and collaborations too. It's great to collaborate. So I think that's really the big thing.
Well, yeah, you just nailed it, man. I mean, it was Christina Connolly from the Canadian Veteran Marketplace that, when I had her on the podcast, I mentioned just like in passing, we're kind of in the middle of I guess a veteran renaissance. And she's like, yes, that's exactly what we're doing. Term. And she loved that, she wrote me a note, like, inventor of the veteran renaissance. I'm like, okay, well, the concept is based around what you're just saying, like the group of us. And there's really, there's a handful of us, right, that are we're always kind of collaborating a little. We're doing podcasts here. There's Chance, he's doing his podcast. There's you, Jody's doing his thing out in Ottawa. Like there's a group, there's Arrowhead Coffee. Like we see these things, they're popping up. I didn't see these 10 years ago, really. Like, up until like after the war, we all got back and we started doing our own thing. Like we're starting to pop up because I guess, well, it might be boredom. It's like, what else are we going to do? But I take inspiration from all you guys. I hear and see what you guys are up to, and it motivates me to do more. And it's kind of like a flywheel. And you mentioned, momentum with a bike wheel. Once it gets started, that momentum, as long as you put a little bit more energy into it, it takes less and less energy to make it go faster.
Way easier to keep it moving. Yeah.
Easier to keep it moving. That's exactly it. And that's kind of what I'm seeing right now, is this ability to take our experience and being in business. Yeah, we want to stay in business. So obviously we need to sell things. Like that's a no-brainer. But ultimately, we don't have the same, I think, motivation, in the sense that, not that we don't want to do stuff, but the same dollar sign motivation. You said it's community. For me, it's community. I started just with community. I had nothing else. I was like, look, I want to help. And it was really, I've mentioned it now on every podcast I've been on for the last, 2 or 3 months. I got called out for being selfish, for not helping. And I was like, all right.
How was that?
It was the worst feeling I ever had. I wanted to choke him out, man. And I can't
imagine somebody saying that to you.
It was a business course. So there's me, there's 2 veterans there, but I was the only Canadian. There's a British veteran there, who just got back recently too. And we're all in the online space, and yeah, we're doing just the 3 days of intense, just business training and how to set up an online business. And a shout out to James Moody, man. Like, he's just this small, scrappy Brit. And he's like, dude, you're being selfish. I was like,
oh, really?
I went red. I was like, He's like, you have all this knowledge. You know all this stuff about fitness. You've been deployed. You could be helping thousands of people with what you know, but you choose not to because you're scared. You're scared of looking like a fool. You're scared of not.
You said it to motivate you, to get you going.
So I was just like, wow. I've never been so motivated. I started writing blogs right away. I started writing a book. I was like, fuck you, James Moody. I'm going to show you.
Recent?
Yeah. Sorry.
Was this recent, or this is what started?
This was 3 years ago. So this is like before. It was.
That makes sense.
I cashed in all my chips with my wife. I said, I left. So this is the progression. I was miserable at work. I was teaching. It was the last 2 years I was teaching. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do that. I didn't know what they were, but I was getting like panic attacks, like in class, like before I was going to teach, like 13-year-olds. Like, and that's the thing. My mind was going like, quit being such a bitch. Were you scared of 13-year-olds? You had freaking Taliban point guns at your chest, man. Like, what's the matter with you? And I was just like, yeah, you quit being a bitch. But it kept on coming up. And I was like, okay, there's something wrong. I don't know what it is. I can't stay here. So eventually I popped smoke and found another job at a startup. That was like terrible fit, but it was one of those things where I just had to get out and I needed something to hold on to. And so I got fired within 3 months. It was just like, it's like, you're a terrible
You felt
fit.
alive. You took that risk. That was Yeah. You did what your spirit was telling you essentially. And I've had the same thing. And now that you mentioned that, maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's exactly what it was. When you don't find your true calling, something's just pushing you in that direction. And I'm pretty sure it's panic attacks, but yeah, it was just, I don't get those as much anymore. Like, I used to have such severe anxiety. I couldn't even step outside without the fear of like death following me, that I was going to pass out from the anxiety. And I don't know, it's weird. Or maybe it's finding a passion that you're so into that you don't notice it anymore. Like, it's still there with you every day, but it does get better. And therapy, professional help does help.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the more fit you are, the more you can handle stress. There's 100%. Nobody could ever deny that. And the more motivated you are, and that motivation comes from the team and community. Before, it was with the battalion, you'd have to do it and you'd have a mission to accomplish regardless, right? And then we become a little bit rudderless once we leave, or we seek a new direction and we're not really 100% sure where that direction is. I think that's an advantage to where we're at now with social media, that veteran renaissance, where you have all these businesses that have popped up. Because before that, I only heard of Corporal for Life. I never heard of any other business. And then all of a sudden now, through an Instagram, and now there's a business for almost anything you can think of. And it's really, a lot of businesses are doing really well. And it's great to see everyone and do well, to see them not just succeed, but thrive, because I think that's really what we owe to all their veteran entrepreneurs that want to start their businesses. And also let them know, if they're not in a business, if what they're doing isn't making any money, put them on their, adjust their course and help them with what they need. But I've always been a firm believer in that saying, where a rising tide lifts all boats. When everyone's doing well and helping each other, it helps the spread the good cheer. The tide rises for everyone. It helps everyone out.
100%. 100%. I mean, and that's since the start, my philosophy anyways, that, you know what, if you want to get into the online trainer space, I've had some guys reach out to me. I'm like, dude, I'll literally give you everything I got, man. Because at the end of the day, somebody who wants to buy something from you wants to buy something from you because they like what you have to say and they make a connection. So there's a million trainers out there, man. Like, if there's two more, so be it, And if I'm in the online space and I can't wrangle up enough people to make my business float, I must be doing something wrong. Like, I can literally reach out to anybody on the planet. So, like the whole concept of business, we had brick and mortar before. And if somebody opened up the exact same store right next to yours back in the day, you might be a little pissed off. You'd be like, are you serious? All right, game on. But you could still make it happen if you collaborate and figure out a way. Like, look, maybe we should combine efforts, like these kind of things may just put us both out of business. And that's not what we want. So, and plus we all come from kind of like a shared experience. So we have this idea of teamwork, which isn't really prevalent anywhere else except the military, where you have a mission and you all need to figure it out. And you can't say, oh, we didn't get it done because these two knuckleheads over here were holding me back. It's like, no, you figure out a way, man. And that's the get her done attitude, right? Is like, that's ingrained in us from the start, because A, we usually don't have enough resources. And then B, we don't have enough manpower. And then C, it's like, well, you know what? Like, it has to get done no matter what. So figure it out. And you're like, all right, I guess I'll figure this one out too.
I think it also silences a lot of the naysayers. Some of the biggest critics are, people saying that they could do the same thing or do it better. Then you help them out and do whatever you can to show them that leads them to go and do it. If they don't, then really that's just kind of like, that kind of just pushes things forward in terms of where their resolve was, if they meant to do it or not, or if they're just making noise. And you get a lot of that. We get a lot of, I'm sure everybody gets critics, and yourself also. I guess I'm my biggest critic, always saying I'm not doing enough or I should do more. But the reality is, when you have that opportunity to show and teach and grow, not everyone's willing to stay on the same path. And it's true, because it's a lot of work. It's really hard. Not everybody's cut out for it or really has that interest. Some people just want to chill out or just work on a piece of wood. And that's not necessarily a business that they need to thrive. It's just something to keep them busy, and that's fine. But that's the idea, to help everyone out. And then in turn, along the way, you can find out, who you align with, and who's similarly minded with values. And not everyone will succeed, but it's certainly what we can do to help. I think I'm the same mindset. The more, the better, because it also helps us stand out. It just shows from the end all the work that was put through, how things stand in a night and day comparison between something that was just kind of Mickey Mouse and put together, or professionally done. And I certainly am not a good example of how to start a business. I call it building an airplane while falling through the air.
Oh, yeah, that's
bootstrapped and went as it went.
So, it's like, well, I'm dropping now, so
yeah. No, we got to start making money. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. But it's been an amazing adventure, and the friends that I've made along the way and the lessons I've learned have really helped us get where we are. And we certainly try to do the same for others. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Anything that I've done has been a lesson learned. Just like leadership, I've had good leaders and bad leaders, and I've taken lessons from both on how to apply, for every rank that I've been in, how to apply those lessons learned and also give them back. And mentorship's a really important thing too. When we think of the end game, not all of us want to stay working forever. So in terms of positions in our like full-time jobs, who would it be that would replace us? How are we going to do that? If something else came your way and you had an opportunity, who could step in? So I always am actively seeking that in my platoon, or at least with some of the other things I do.
Yeah, right on. I'm curious, man, like Mad Hatter, where did that come from? What, like, are you a big Alice in Wonderland fan? What was the inspiration for Mad Hatter Industries?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I guess it came from originally a nickname that I had. So Hatt is my last name. And then everybody calls everybody their last name in the Army. Hatter became a kind of acronym. And then Mad Hatter just sort of evolved from the things that happened overseas and things that we were a part of. And then Mad Hatter Industries, I actually used to skateboard going through high school. Independent Industries was a huge brand that I ascribed to. I just love, and Thrasher and actually Vice, when it was in Montreal, and they did like the legit art with the Montreal kind of freestyle art with the graffiti and whatnot before they became this big media industry where they are now. They used to be headquartered in Montreal, but the art was amazing. So Mad Hatter was a nickname that evolved through the military, and then I just threw the industries on the end because I just like the idea of it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and then it worked from there. And the original kind of logo was something I made while going through depression. And then after losing a few colleagues to suicide and seeing the impacts that it had on their family, particularly one, when I saw the face of the daughter and the kids, it was mostly the one daughter. I could just see the look of, it's hard to describe what that look was, but it wouldn't be anything I ever want to have my kids go through. And it really kind of solidified the resolve on the importance of the no quarter given motto about suicide prevention, not allowing suicide as an option. And as well as it was kind of like a Goggins pseudonym. So this specter, this kind of ghost-like figure was what I wanted to look to base myself internally more tougher and physically just be that what represents those values and actions and put it into practice. So it just kind of hardened me up. Right on.
Yeah, it's really cool branding, and I like every brand, every company has a story, and like this is great. Like, I mean, like a lot of good stories and a lot of good work comes from pain, right? And it's unfortunate, but that's just who we are as people, right? Like the more you connect with that deep, rooted emotion with, your friend, unfortunately, taking his life and seeing his kids, and it's just like there's just something there, that is just the yin and yang of life, right? You have destruction and creation, and you've taken that and built something really cool with that pain and sorrow, which is really noble of you, obviously, and you can carry on the legacy of your friend, which is really cool. So you were talking about creating, and obviously you're a creative guy, and just your Instagram feed is really well, like I use it as inspiration. And your last campaign is really slick. So folks, if you're listening, like, if you haven't checked out Corey Hatt, it's Mad Hat. It's Mad Hatter Industries or the Mad Hatter at
Mad Hatter Industries is how we're found on Instagram. Pretty much
right.
everywhere. If you type in Mad Hatter Industries, you'll find what looks like this logo, this little icon logo.
Mm-hmm.
And then on our page, you'll be able to know, because it's basically just, I don't think there's any veteran-owned apparel with a mental health initiative companies that are called Mad Hatter. So that's one way to find us.
No, you're unique in that space, so that makes it significantly easier. And you're just the campaigns and stuff, like the marketing itself, like you're doing a really freaking good job. Like I'm captivated by what you put out there, like the videos and stuff like that. How do you do that, man? How do you conceptualize that? Like, are you doing this on your own? Like, do you have it looks like you have a pretty good team, or is it,
it's a mix. We have a great group of influencers, ambassadors. Everyone probably knows Golf Alpha Delta. Giselle is one of our first advocates and probably our chief one. She's been there from day one and done a lot of really good things on her own with their own podcasts, the Breaking Dress Regs. But it started with a team and just people believing the mission, but also talking to other people out there that are doing the same thing we're doing, that I looked up to, and just kind of asked how they're doing it, learned. The fall shoot I did all on my own, but we've hired photographers, professional photographers. And I think it's important to invest in your business. If you really want it to grow, do what it takes to make it unique, make it stand out, do what you love, and work towards that. For me, I love motorcycles. It may not be as big a part of our niche as I think it is, but I just love it. And I also think airsoft is a real interesting something that I'm looking into, just because I think it's a good way to get current and former military members active and running again and doing things fit wise, and also inspiring that next generation. But it's a real interesting niche that I see a practical application to, because when I was on the gun teams, I used to be on the armed nuclear SWAT teams, or what do they call it, armed nuclear security officers. So we had like a response team. Mm-hmm. A lot of our training would involve just stealth and movement, immediate rapid deployment. A lot of that stuff can be practiced with that kind of application. Like the pulling of the trigger is very kind of the last minute thing. It's all everything else leading up to that, the teamwork, the communication, your foot drills, the confidence. And now they're making these airsoft toys, I guess they're weapons. It's like it operates, acts, and weighs the exact same as a real carbine. With all the restrictions we're having and continuing to have, it is a really unique and I think it's a good opportunity. So that's something we're looking into. I have a pistol, but I haven't got the rifle yet. But there's a lot of great veterans out there doing stuff like that, and a lot of great initiatives that they're doing. And I think that whole physical, like that adventure lifestyle, is really what we're all about. I signed up to do a free fall course. It's always something I wanted to do with the military, which was parachute. Just it's really
you never got your wings
course. No, I kept putting in for pre-para. Never got the opportunity to go and do the run as ready, but it's hard to get a meathead on a course like that when it's more combat arms focused, which is fine, but maybe one day. In the interim, though, I'm hopping on the first chalk for Operation Pegasus to just do their basic jumps, learn how to do that. Yeah, Tim and Rob McNeil, who's another fantastic individual. And I think it's really important to connect with those veterans too. They have a lot of experience, and they're doing a lot of great things. I think Campbell River Skydive is the only veteran-owned skydive operation in Canada.
Wow.
And then Parachute Ottawa, they do a fantastic job as well. They're just complete professionals. I felt very comfortable jumping out of that plane. They put me up with a vet as well, and he was a bit of a maniac. He could put me completely sideways, which is a lot of fun when we jumped out, and we did a flip out. And then once the canopy opened, we were doing some turns that got me pretty nauseous pretty quick. So got me hooked. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Tim sent me the sign up form, and there's one thing that
should do it
makes me queasy thinking about it. It's jumping out of a plane. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
God. I'm
Well,
like,
not everyone has to
call
do
me
it.
out.
There's other activities, but yeah, definitely get Rob or Tim to throw you out of a plane or do a tandem. Yeah, it's an experience to do once for sure, but there'll be kayaking, a whole bunch of other stuff, but it's a great way to get veterans together. And for me, therapeutically, I did find it was a lot easier to open up and talk to people after doing some physical hardship or something that bonds us together. I don't know the way it works with a lot of people, but I think there's a similarity with us that we find it hard to trust people if they haven't come from where we've come from.
Mm-hmm.
So breaking down those barriers, it's one of those things that are unique to veterans as we come across a little bit, maybe more, it's almost like the beaten dog syndrome where it's hard to accept love or unconditional support. It's always hard to find trust, but once you do and you're able to get over those issues, there's a whole world of things out there to help you, get into finding what you love and living that adventure. And I think a lot of veterans, everyone's at some point where they felt like all they want to do is be by themselves out in a cabin in the woods or down in the basement. And that's really where the problems start, especially when you're adding in alcohol and then letting those bad thoughts creep in. And I have a few friends like that, and I try to check up on them. You can never really do a good enough job, but it's always important to take the time to reach out to them, let them know, that they're loved and you're thinking about them. But you also have to get yourself out there. It's not always easy, but it's important to connect and do those things. It makes you feel better. Like as much as, you think staying inside help, it doesn't.
No, and that's my company, a lot of it comes from me. Just I wanted to help, but I needed help. Like I knew I needed to, like this company keeps me accountable to myself. Cause if I get chubby now and if I start,
how can you sell your fitness products?
Yeah. It's like, I need to keep a certain level of fitness, man. I need to keep my habits dialed in. And when they start to slip, cause I'm a human being like everybody else, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm letting these people down, man. Like I'm not preaching. I'm not doing what I preach. And that's not how I perform as a leader. I always lead by example. My raison d'etre is essentially to just fundamentally change the health paradigm for veterans across the board. Because we're missing a major component, which is the physical side. Like the dudes I work with, especially the dudes, that's it. Like you had this perception of who you were, and you're like, why aren't I still there? Why aren't I still there? How come I'm not that guy? And then that negative self-talk is just a downward spiral of shit. And it's getting out of that and realizing there's other people in that same boat, and you need to get moving again. You need to get outside. You need to take a breath of fresh air. You need to do something challenging. That's what made us who we were. And we forget that was why we were that aggressive and happy. And we had that challenge, and we had that group, and we had that tribe. And I reference Sebastian Junger all the time. Like his book Tribe it's a short book, but it's right to the point. We lack the tribe. And when you miss the tribe and you don't have the tribe, that's when things start to go sour, because we're social beings. And like these last 2 years with all these restrictions and stuff like that have been awful on me.
All the bullshit. Yeah.
And it's just, you can see it, man. Like I was just talking to Mark Meinke the other day, and he's like, man, it's devastation with a lot of my friends too. And you're like, man, it's like, you can only do so much as one person, right? And you're trying, and you're dealing with your own shit too. But like, I had a great conversation. I don't know if you know Sachin. He's a canine.
He's a beauty. Yeah.
Just talked to him yesterday. I never talked to him before, and he's like, hey man, can I hop on the pod? I was like, dude, I love it, man. That's aggressive. I love it. Yeah, for sure. So we had this awesome conversation because I didn't know what he was up to. He told me he ran 100 clicks. I'm like, that's just amazing. Just full stop.
And now he's
like, no, I'm going to run across Canada in 2025. I was like, excuse me, what? You going to do what?
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
So a human being like that, and he said, I'm very honest. He's like, man, these last, 2 years, all this COVID stuff has just been crushing me, because we don't have, we're basically stuck in our own kingdoms, which is, our homes. And, we're being told, don't go hang out, don't go hang out, don't go hang out. It's like, yeah, but if I don't hang out, like worst case scenario, I'm going to fucking blow my brains out, or more likely I'm going to
get a cold.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be miserable with my freaking wife and kids, and they're going to see grumpy dad all the time. And that's going to imprint on them that, dad's not good to be around. I'm scared of dad. And, like I've seen it, and I got to catch myself. And thankfully I have, guys like yourself that I can talk to, like literally right now. This is part of my therapy. But, our businesses act as a conduit for, positive behavior. At least I like to think so. And that's what I see from you anyways. So, Corey, what's on the agenda for Mad Hatter Industries going into 2022? What's on the agenda, man?
Well, lots. We got a lot new products coming out, some exciting developments. And then in terms of collaborations, we're doing some great things with charities like Veterans and Everyday Heroes, looking to do something with Warrior Adventures Canada, just tying up the details on that. Operation Pegasus, for those that haven't checked it out, go and check it out through Tim's page, or Campbell River Skydive. We'll also be teaming up with Parachute Ottawa. I turned the big 4-0 this year.
Oh, so man, welcome to the club, man. Welcome to the club.
I'm going to be an old man. I'm going to be down in the drop zone. We're doing a fundraiser there, and we're giving discounts for anybody who wants to jump out of a plane. I think Veterans and Everyday Heroes is going to sponsor getting a few people out there for free if they want to do it. So that's on the 25th. So we're going to start advertising that. And I'm looking to get qualified if everything goes well with the personal pre-fall qual, and then continuing to improve on our designs, our mission to help others find their passion and live their adventure, which is, it's an evolution of our original motto, which was no quarter given. And that's ultimately about suicide prevention and helping deal with adversity. But we want to get to before there's even an issue, to help you find, once things start happening, where it is that you really need to be. That anxiety is creeping up. Let's help you find what it is that you truly love doing, and how do we get you there? Work on that mentorship piece. And I as well want to be, I love when you talk about your business, how you want to say you want to be that grandfather that can run with their kids. Well, that's totally something that I'm right on with. Like it's that healthy lifestyle, active and positive, being with the right people, like-minded individuals in that community. So that's what we're doing. We're focusing on getting things going, hopefully maintaining a positive cash flow if things ever fuck off with this COVID thing. And we have the motorcycle show we're ready to hit. And, we know there's definitely a definite risk to what's going on. Nobody can deny that this is a virus of concern, but it's definitely the craziest social experiment you've ever seen, locking people down for 2 years. We're two mentally resilient individuals, veterans. We like to think we can deal with things. I can't imagine how it's wreaking on everybody else. And I can kind of tell when I'm dropping off orders and some people look like they've gained a little more weight than they did the last time, and myself included. It's just, we need to get out there and we need to get connected, and hopefully we can just get over it this year. And by this time we'll be hanging out in person at the next Ruck to Remember without a mask, hopefully, but do what we can to at least keep the community thriving and continuing forward. So
that's the key. It's like, Stoic philosophy, this too shall pass. And as frustrating and as annoying and idiotic and illogical as a lot of this shit is, you got to hold on and got to keep on pushing forward and building and using this time to not just brood and just get all fucking pissed off and yell at your phone all day. Build, get shit done. Because a lot of people aren't, and they're
set goals.
Set goals. Like, it's like, okay, most of the world isn't doing anything. Like I had this guy I follow on Twitter. He's like, well, this is an interesting social experiment. All those people are like, man, if I only had the time, I'd, learn a whole new language. I'd get an MBA. I'd create a business. And how'd that turn out?
The reality is,
no, it turns out you had all kinds of time, bro. You didn't do shit. So that's a fallacy. It's like, so the people that are already in that, like, it's a mindset thing. It just doesn't matter what the conditions are. You're going to do it regardless. And that's, what you're just doing.
Like business.
Just like business. It's just like, man, like I ate shit last year, even on an online business. I still ate shit business wise, but I'm still here. I'm still kicking.
So you're still kicking. Yeah.
That's it. And it's that mental resiliency and that resolve to not go down without a very serious eye gouging fight. That's what it's all about, man. So, folks, go check out Corey on Instagram. You have other handles that we can throw out there so that they can find you?
Yeah. So, well, for Facebook and Instagram, that's where we get the majority of our traffic through Mad Hatter Industries, and it's www.madhatterindustries.ca, which is our website. We are on TikTok. I am not as hip as most of the kids on there, but
I'm not
we
on
have
it
a
yet.
YouTube channel. It's a lot of fun. But certainly, yeah, that's just look us up, and maybe I'll provide my email contact and telephone if anybody ever wants to chat or just talk about mental health in their own front, or if there's any way we can help any initiatives you have locally, feel free to reach out to us. I'm pretty approachable, and if I don't get back to you right away, I'll make sure that I try to get back to you as soon as I can. And certainly if you don't hear from me in 2 days, poke me again. But that's I'd love to help. And same for business. If there's any ideas anybody has or needs some advice, well, if anybody wants to start an apparel company, first thing I probably do is tell them not to do it. It's so much money and so much time and effort. But if you don't listen to me, then and you do it anyways, then we'll chat. I'll tell you never to give up.
Right on. It's kind of like what my mother said, and I guess she was right. But when I told him like, yeah, I think I'm gonna be a teacher, she was a teacher, right? She's like, don't become a teacher. I was like, no, I really want to do it. She's like, don't do that. She's like, look at me, like I don't have anything. Like I worked my whole life and I don't really have anything for it. I'm like, all right, cool. And I still went into it anyways. It's kind of like the trials you need to go through, right? Like if you can push through the rejection, it's like, okay, you're meant to be in that spot.
Yeah,
Cool.
overcome all odds.
Yeah, exactly. Overcome the odds, and at the end of the day, everything's a learning experience, and that's the point of life.
Always
Man.
learn the lesson. Yeah, you got to continuously learn, continuously develop. Those are great attitudes and mindsets to have.
Absolutely. Corey, this was a hoot. Thanks so much for sharing your experience and your time with myself and the listeners.